What really happened to Rumbelows? The shocking truth. If you close your eyes and transport yourself to a typical British town in 1985, you'll see a familiar sight. Cobbled streets, red telephone boxes, and a bustling high street where life was in full swing. Among the signs for Boots, Marks and Spencer and Woolworths, one stood out, bright blue, with a font that felt futuristic for its time. Rumbelows. For millions of Britons, this wasn't just an electronics store. It was the place where families made life-changing decisions, which television to buy to watch the FA Cup final, or whether to splurge on that newfangled gadget, the VCR. But in 1995, this empire evaporated. No warning, no closing down sales, no goodbyes. Today, we dive into the darkest archives of British corporate history to find out, how did a giant with over 400 stores get cold-bloodedly liquidated by its own management? The story of Rumbelows began long before the neon-soaked 1980s. It started with the entrepreneurial spirit of Fred Rumbelow, who believed that electronics were the future. In the 50s and 60s, owning a television in Britain was akin to owning a private jet today. But by the mid-70s, everything changed. The era of mass consumption had arrived. Rumbelows perfectly caught the wave of white goods, fridges and washing machines, and brown goods, televisions and radios. Their strategy was ingeniously simple: accessibility. While competitors were building massive hangars on the outskirts of town, Rumbelows went to the people. They rented small units in the heart of town centers, right next to the butchers and bakers. It created the feeling of a neighborhood shop. You could pop out for a loaf of bread and, in passing, pick out a new toaster. By the early 80s, the chain had grown to 441 stores. Their ads were everywhere. The famous slogan, "Don't pay any more, Rumbelows," became part of the national folklore. It seemed nothing could stop this locomotive. But at that moment, a shadowy player entered the stage, the corporation Thorn EMI. In 1989, Thorn EMI, a conglomerate owning everything from recording studios to defense plants, bought Rumbelows. On paper, it looked like a strategic triumph. Thorn already owned radio rentals, the dominant force in the TV rental market. Combining rental and direct sales under one roof promised a monopoly. But here lies the first shocking detail. Thorn EMI never actually liked retail. To them, shops were merely a distribution channel. Inside the company, what financial analysts call corporate cannibalism began. Thorn owned multiple brands that were effectively stealing customers from one another. Rumbelows managers fought for budgets against radio rentals managers. Instead of directing resources toward fighting external enemies like Dixons and Currys, the company spent millions on internal feuds. While Thorn EMI's top brass dined in London's most expensive restaurants, Rumbelows stores began to rot. Interiors weren't updated for years, and the staff, once the best in the market, began to lose motivation under the crushing weight of a massive, bureaucratic corporation. Then came the 90s. Britain was facing a recession, but technology kept hurtling forward. CD players, the first game consoles, and massive, heavy CRT televisions appeared. It was here that Rumbelows' main tactical error became clear. Their tiny high street shops, which had been an advantage in the 70s, became their curse. You couldn't display a wide range of massive televisions in a 50-square-meter room. You couldn't offer customers free parking in a medieval town center with narrow streets. Competitors like Dixons and the new giant PC World began building gargantuan warehouses in out-of-town retail parks. The British public had become car-dependent. It was far more convenient to drive to a massive hangar with everything under one roof than to try and park a car in a congested city centre just to buy a kettle. Rumbelows continued to pay astronomical rents for prestigious addresses that no longer turned a profit. By 1993, it was clear every television sold was actually losing the company money due to overhead costs. In 1994, Thorn EMI, realizing the scale of the catastrophe, hired crisis managers. A £15 million rescue campaign was launched to make Rumbelows cool again. There were new logos and expensive TV ads. They even shifted their positioning, trying to become experts in high technology. But the shocking truth was that inside Thorn EMI, the decision had already been made. While ad agencies were painting new posters, the finance department was drafting the liquidation plan. The entire rebranding was nothing more than putting lipstick on a corpse in the hopes that they might be able to sell the chain as a whole. But no buyers came forward. Dixons and Currys simply waited for Rumbelows to die on its own so they could snatch up its market share for pennies. February 1995 went down in British retail history as Black Month. Earlier that month, Thorn EMI published a report showing Rumbelows had lost £12 million in a year. For a multi-billion-pound corporation, this was a drop in the ocean that could have been covered. But the board of directors thought otherwise. They needed to boost their stock price ahead of a major demerger of the company's music and industrial sectors. Rumbelows was an ugly stain on their balance sheet. The events that followed unfolded with the speed of a thriller. On a Monday, employees showed up for work planning their weekly sales. By Wednesday, rumors of store closures leaked to the press. On Thursday morning, a short fax was sent to all 400 stores. The order: close the doors to customers immediately. By Thursday evening, an announcement was made that the entire Rumbelows network had ceased to exist. 3,000 people found themselves on the street without a redundancy package exceeding the legal minimum. It was a shock to the entire nation. People who had worked for the company for decades found out they were fired from the BBC News or from short notes taped to shop doors. Customers who had just placed deposits on appliances or paid for extended warranties were left with nothing. This wasn't a bankruptcy in the traditional sense. It was a planned liquidation of a living, albeit troubled, organism for the sake of a financial report. After the closure, Rumbelows stores stood empty for years. Their blue signs faded in the rain, serving as a grim reminder of the collapse. The truth about Rumbelows is that they didn't lose the competition. They were betrayed by their own owners. Thorn EMI chose to kill the brand to save on taxes and asset write-offs rather than transforming it into an online retailer or moving it to larger formats. Had Rumbelows survived, it might have been Britain's answer to Amazon or Best Buy today. But 90s corporate greed chose the quick cash. Today, where Rumbelows once stood, you'll find pharmacies, charity shops, or coffee chains. But if you ask any Briton over 40, they will remember that blue sign. Rumbelows remains a symbol of a time when we believed the future was a new TV on credit, and the shop around the corner would be there forever. Their disappearance is a stark reminder that in the world of big money, there is no room for nostalgia.